This is a true story. The man's name is John Corcoran. Born in New Mexico, grew up there, nice family, 5 brothers and sisters. But when John went to school, he didn't pick up things very quickly. But he was a well-mannered child with interested parents, and they said, "Oh, he'll get it. He'll be all right," and they would promote him. By the time he got to the 7th grade, though, he was very frustrated. And he began to act out and do crazy stuff, and he got expelled from school. His parents were not happy, and John figured out that whatever was going on, he needed to act a little better. And so he went back and he became this great social kind of guy. He had a lot of girlfriends, and he also was very good at math. So knew his times tables, made change, all that kind of stuff. And his girlfriends would do his homework for him and help him cheat on tests. And so he graduated. He went to high school. And in high school, he just doubled down on the social stuff. And he became an athlete. And once again, his girlfriends helped him do his homework and helped him get by and cheat on his test, or he would slide his paper over, they'd fill it out and slide it back to him and then do their own. And so John graduated and got a full scholarship, a full athletic scholarship to go to college. And he walked through the doors of that college, and nobody knew that he could not read or write. Well, now college is a different thing than high school. It was far more complicated. But he got into one of those fraternities where the guys have the money and they can buy the test papers. But there were a couple of times he really had to get creative. One time, he had a friend who wanted to be introduced to a certain girl. And so the classroom where he was going to take the test, there was a window. He sat in the back by the window, and he meticulously wrote down the 4 questions that the professor put on the board. He didn't know what those squiggles meant, but he copied them. And he passed the test paper out of the window to his friend, who filled in all the answers and gave it back to John, who sat there the whole time with an empty book pretending to write. And the ultimate thing he did was a professor who had locked the exam inside of a filing cabinet. He actually stole the filing cabinet, took it to a locksmith, got a key made to get a copy of the test, and went back to his room and wept like a baby because now he had become a criminal. But he graduated. And when he graduated, he was told there was a shortage of teachers. And this college graduate who could neither read nor write became a teacher for 17 years. He was the athletic director. He taught social studies. He said, "I got the 2 smartest kids in the class to help me. And they're the ones who wrote on the board. And they're the ones who took roll because I couldn't read the students' names." And his greatest fear was that they were going to ask him to do something at a faculty meeting, and he'd already figured out that if they did, what he'd do is grab his chest and feign a heart attack. He tried to tell his wife, and he said to her one time, "Kathy, I can't read." And she took it to mean that he didn't like to read, and he never clarified. But then one day she saw him putting their daughter to bed, telling her a bedtime story that he was just making up. It wasn't what was in the book. And his wife realized he couldn't read, but they didn't do anything about it. 8 years after he stopped teaching, he was watching TV, and at that time, Barbara Bush's husband was the vice president, and she had a program called For Adult Literacy. And he found out that there were many people in the world like him who couldn't read and write even as adults. And so he put on his best suit, he walked down to the library, he went up to the desk and he said, "I'm 48 years old and I cannot read or write and I want help." And they assigned him to a mentor, a teacher, 65-year-old woman. She wasn't really a teacher, but she loved to read and could not imagine anybody in this world going through life being unable to read. And soon he was reading at a 6th grade level, and he said it was like a new world had opened up to him. But it was fully 7 years, he said, before he felt literate. His teacher told him, "You need to share your story." And he said, "I'm not doing that. My wife works here. She's a professional. My parents are here. My children, my grandchildren. I'm not doing that." But he did. He went on Larry King. He was featured on 2020. And he was interviewed by Oprah. I really struggled with what Sarah has to say about this remarkable man, because his story is not isolated. I knew somebody who didn't learn to read till they were in their 50s. And so I found this quote from Brené Brown that says, "Sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is to show up." And what she meant is to show up and be vulnerable, to show up and say, "This is who I am. These are my flaws and my imperfect self." And when you do that, all those things that have made you ashamed and fearful will disappear. Because you will be genuine, and the light of being genuine takes away all those shadows of fear and doubt. John Cochran is a brave man. I hope we would all find a way to be that vulnerable, that genuine. And when you do, you might find out that there are a lot of people who are in the same boat with you. Keep supporting us. We appreciate it. Peace and blessings.